Okay.
This is a public hearing for the Cornwall Planning and Zoning Committee. The hearing is coming to order. I'm Anna Timmel, the Chair of Planning and Zoning. In compliance with state law, a transcript is being made. Everything that is said at any public hearing of a Planning and Zoning Commission must have a transcript. We're doing this by means of an electronic recording. For the purpose of the record, let me now state that it's 7:04 p.m. on September 28th at a special meeting posted as posted in the town hall. The members who are present tonight are regular members Phil West, Stephen Sicardi, James Laporta, Keith Bodwell. The alternates who are present are Bruce Bennett, Christine Gray, and Will Evans. Members seated for the hearing will be myself, Phil West, Steve Sicardi, James Laporta, and Keith Bodwell. We will seat Bruce Bennett for absent member Jill Cutler. I will remind the alternates that I take you each in turn alphabetically, and I have been paying attention. The purpose of the hearing, duly advertised according to law, is to hear the following SP 253 special permit for a major home business, Joshua Tyson and Catherine Hosterman, as per section 8.16, home businesses. Their address is 118 College Street. I will ask Karen to read the legal notice into the record.
A legal notice is dated September 14th. It was posted on the website September 14th, the evening after our regular meeting. It reads: Town of Cornwall, notice of continued public hearing, Planning and Zoning Commission. As part of a September 28th, 2021 special meeting, the Cornwall Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a Zoom public hearing commencing at 7 p.m. to hear the following application. SP 253, Joshua Tyson and Catherine Hosterman, applicant, owners, special permit for a major home business as per section 8-16, subsection 0.5, major home businesses at 118 College Street. At this public hearing, interested persons may appear virtually and be heard. The Zoom link for the public hearing will be posted on the website at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Written communication should be directed to the land use office electronically at cwlanduse@optonline.net or by postal mail. Copies of the application and correspondence received are available for review in the land use office, Cornwall Town Offices, Pine Street, Cornwall, by appointment during posted hours, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on Tuesday and Thursday, or electronically by request to cwlanduse@optonline.net. Dated this 14th day of September 2021. Karen Griswold Nelson, Land Use Administrator. Anna, would you like me to continue on as to?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to read information that has been made part of the record, and we're starting from
Recording in progress.
Okay. Everything here has been forwarded to the commission, is on file in the land use office, and is indicated posted on the town website. What's posted on the town website is application 253, including application form, site plan with supporting information, which includes building elevations, narrative, and correspondence received. The following correspondence is on the website. September 9th, email with attached letter from Richard Zimini. September 9th, email from Mason Scranton. 9/13/2021, email from Michelle Ship. 9/13/2021, email from Christopher Scranton. 9/18/2021, email from Roberta Tyson. 9/20, email from Donna Murphy. 9/21/21, email from Robinson Lacey. 9/23/2021, email from Annie Kosciuszko. 9/25/2021, email from Connie Hedden. 9/26, correspondence from John Laporta. today, I had email with an attachment from Wade Wolf and Antonio Morales, and 928 email again today from Janet Carlson Sanders, and a 928 email from George Charlton. All of those are up on the website and posted under minutes and agendas. And then this afternoon, I received 2 emails that were forwarded to the commission, email from Becky and Bill Hurlbert and an email from Adam Fisher. And that is pretty much what I have. But if anybody is looking, they can go up on the website and they should be able to see just about everything.
Thank you, Karen. We're going to follow the following procedure for this evening's hearing. The first thing, we will open the floor to the applicant, who will present his application. And then we will open the floor to commissioners for any questions they may have. Following the commissioners' questioning, we will open the floor to members of the public who have any comments. I would ask that those of you who are now coming in late to our meeting to please mute your audio. We request this so that we don't have extraneous noises or feedback affecting our meeting. So I can see 2 people who are not yet muted, Philippa Durant and someone reading a newspaper whose name is not available. Okay. Josh Tyson, please describe for us what you are planning to do.
I'm proposing to construct on my property at 118 College Street a 32 by 44 foot heated dry building. That is to say, no water, no running water in it. Heated garage type workshop to house my excavating and landscaping company out of, and then an adjacent shed, kind of an open shed that would be 24 by 36 feet to, again, just to store equipment, vehicles, that type of thing. And the land that it's on is reasonably level, won't require any significant grading or retaining to level it enough to be useful, and it's fairly proximate to College Street. It's perhaps 100 feet off of the road. I'm proposing to build a barn that's an asphalt shingled wooden sided building, kind of in keeping with other barns in the area. This is not a so-called Morton style building or a steel building. This is really intended to look much more like a hay barn or something that's just you might see driving around town. Some screening along the road is what I proposed in the application, kind of a mix of deciduous and evergreen trees and bushes to buffer things a little bit. And I don't anticipate any on-site fuel storage. The workshop itself would house what I would need to run the business, tools and supplies, some various mechanical tools, and electrical tools. But essentially, it's a heated place to get in the winter and thaw things out and run my business from.
Okay, thank you for that. The commissioners have all received the entire application with the site plan. Are there any questions from the commissioners? I would like you to raise your hands so that I can call on you. Bruce.
Hi, Josh. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, a suggestion, and some concerns of your neighbors that I have a suggestion about how you might be able to control that, and need to ask you about the drainage that's coming around and being altered from around the septic system on the plan. First of all, you notice that the equipment is not going to be running in your area, and yet it does diesel engines do require to be idled for a certain period of time before you move a vehicle. Is this a practice that you will be doing, or will you avoid letting those engines idle?
I think you're correct that particularly when the weather is cold, they do need to warm up for a few minutes. I have the small dump truck I own is a reasonably current Ford vehicle that's a clean idle certified vehicle. So I suppose theoretically it doesn't generate much pollution at idle. It's not something that I would let run for more than 5 minutes or so before leaving the barn. A larger truck would need to generate air to release the brakes. And again, that might require 5 minutes of idle time, but usually we like to kind of get out the door and get going. So we're not sitting around running vehicles for too much before we leave.
So you're not going to hop out there at 5 in the morning and let them run until 7?
No, that's not the plan. No.
You didn't mention, the next thing is, you didn't mention any material storage.
I don't really have a lot of room where I am for material storage, and I try not to accumulate much debris. I believe within the regulations, you're not allowed to store materials in the front yard area of a business like that anyway. I do have some alternate offsite locations where I can stockpile topsoil and that type of thing if I need to.
So especially concerned about things like fieldstone being dumped from the back of a truck, but you're not going to consider anything like that. And you do have another storage area.
No, I mean, I have a kind of an assortment of field stones around that if I need a few steps or something, I grab them and take them with me. But that's something I've been doing for a very long time, and I don't see any increase in intensity in that.
So you talked about screening. Is there enough sun there for evergreens to actually produce any screening? And
I think in some areas, there are a couple of big deciduous hickory trees that are right along the road that do provide a bunch of shade, but it would be some type of mixed border, hopefully utilizing more native material and deer resistant type. But I can't promise you it's an absolute block, but it would be a buffering.
well, I think the way the shed is positioned, it's actually going to screen things that are in the parking area anyway.
And that's by design. Yeah,
I think the design is good in that area. You said there's no water, so you're not going to be washing any equipment or trucks. And this goes into a comment by Richard Zemeny, who was a little concerned about runoff running over into his property.
Mm-hmm.
Has that alteration of the French drain above the septic that's dumping a little bit to the left of this barn structure and the water off the roof, et cetera, is that going to amount to anything? And do you have any kind of control for that? And in closing, I might suggest that you produce some kind of a rain garden that might collect those things before they get out of your yard and into the neighbors.
The curtain drain that's around the septic system does pick up some surface and subsurface water and divert it. It discharges fairly close to the road because that's how far I had to go to get daylight on it. We're certainly not generating any additional water through this, but I do agree that both gravel and a roof don't absorb water in the same way that a field might. And I would be open to some ideas about a little retention pond or something like that. Particularly with the weather we've had now, there is a fair amount of runoff that gets to College Street and then runs along the easterly side of it, and eventually discharges across the road into the Zimney's hayfield. And they're unfortunately just at the low point in the road right there, and that's where the culvert is. But I would do anything I could to minimize any. It's not even an increase in runoff. I think it's just a more rapid runoff because of some hard surfacing and roofing. But I'm certainly not introducing any new water.
So you would, but you would consider some kind of a retention area that,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
And maybe act on that in the future, near
Yeah.
future.
I mean, part of the issue is in that area, the ledge is also very close to the surface in some areas. So even the water, or the ground becomes saturated really quickly because there is not a lot of depth to ledge. I mean, it's right at the surface in some areas, and maybe only a foot or two below in others. So the water doesn't go too far down before it gets
And you would also mention that there's not going to be any kind of hazardous material. Are you going to be changing oil in the equipment in that
we do
area?
some of our own oil changes. I mean, the smaller trucks I usually send to Hall's Garage and just have it done there because it's quick and easy. Equipment, if it's in for the winter and it's getting some winter maintenance, we'll do oil changes and servicing. But as I always have, I have a drum that the oil goes in and then sometimes it goes to the town transfer station. There are outfits around that utilize waste oil to heat their facilities with in the winter, and I often bring it to them.
So you're containing it and then recycling it. Great.
Yeah, no, and that's how I've always done it. I try hard to be very neat and clean with that type of stuff.
Okay, and the last thing is kind of a notice that when we were creating this regulation, one of the concerns was about people starting a business and getting approval and then expanding that business. I just need you to be aware that the permit is for the size of the business that you have now. And if you begin to expand your business, you would need to come back to the board and reapply under those new limitations.
That's completely understood. I'm in a spot right now where I'm pretty happy with the workload I have and the position I'm in. I've done bigger for a long time, and I don't think it's always better somehow.
Agreed. All right, thank you. That's my questions.
Well, commissioners, I wonder if any of you could possibly have any more questions after Bruce's, but James, go ahead.
Thanks, Josh. Just question you have, it looks like on the site plan, you already say existing drive. Is that already gravelled up there?
There is an existing driveway there that was constructed for access to that meadow when we built the house. We had to build a driveway to construct the septic system in that field to get trucks in and out.
Okay.
It will need a culvert. There's not a culvert underneath it, but there is a pretty solid, say 50, 75 foot gravel access that's existing.
So you're just going to expand on that to create the parking area and bring it over to so it's actually not that much additional hardscaping, and I assume you're keeping that gravel?
Yeah, that will. I have not actually consulted with the town highway foreman. They would probably like to see an asphalt apron. With the traffic would be coming and going, I'm sure they'd like to see an apron to protect the edge of their asphalt. But so whatever the regulations are on that, if it's a 10-foot apron or something, that's probably about it.
But the rest of it would be the gravel.
Would be gravel, correct.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I got a quick question, Josh. As far as, I know you hit on it a little bit, but outside storage, lumber, anything like that you might be thinking of? And
I've moved from shop to shop a few times in the last several years, which has forced me to weed out a lot of stuff, and I value that. I'm making it a point not to accumulate a lot of things, and I think between the shop and the adjacent shed, I should be able to contain stuff pretty well within that.
Okay.
Again, I have offsite storage to to stockpile it, in larger amounts of material and topsoil fill, that type of thing if I need to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am just going to clarify for the audience that there is a 3-page narrative on the website that addresses compliance with all of the standards that are addressed in the new home-based regulation. So Josh and Mr. Tyson, Josh, I am not quite sure what I should be calling you these days, but just so anybody has any questions about anything else, there is a narrative on file that becomes part of the special permit, that is permanently embedded into the land use records as part of the special permit. So that is a document, a formal document that really closely defines what has been said here, so it doesn't disappear into recording. It is written, and that is what the commission is addressing, is what was pretty much defined in that document as well.
Commissioners, last chance. Thank you for those thoughtful questions. We are now going to open it up for public comment. I want to just let the public understand that our purpose here is to hear testimony about this particular application by Mr. Josh Tyson. When you address your comments, if you were standing in front of us, you would be looking at us and addressing us. You aren't addressing the applicant. We need you to clearly state your name. And if you have a complicated last name, please spell it for the audio record. I want to let you know that the job of this commission is simply to evaluate whether the applicant has met all of the requirements of our zoning regs. We are not here to decide if a particular application is popular or unpopular based on other criteria. There are not that many people here tonight. Everyone has a right to speak. You have a right to speak more than once if you feel the need to. I'm going to start by asking everybody to limit themselves to 5 minutes so that everybody has a chance and the evening doesn't drag on too long. I wonder if any of the commissioners would volunteer to be the timer for those 5 minutes. Does anybody have their phone? Phil West is going to be our timer. And then after we've had the full go around, we can come around once more and let everybody have a second chance. My last comment is that there should not be any attacks on persons during this comment period. I will now open it to the floor. And those of you who need to speak, I think what I need to do is to be able to see you raise your hand, and then you can unmute yourself and share your comments with us. I see Gordon Ridgway's hand. Gordon, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I would like to go on the record supporting this application. I've read the application and I feel that it meets all the criteria laid out for a major home business. And there are, as I am first selectman, I do hear complaints from time to time. But one thing I haven't heard a complaint about is Josh Tyson and his business, Frost Excavating. Despite all the work he does for town, the complicated work he does for many people, I've never heard any complaints about his work. And that gives me great confidence that he will maintain that standard of running excellent, important business in town per the application that he has submitted. And I think it's also looking at the area, it meets, it's a fairly modest proposal. And it certainly fits in with the barns that are scattered throughout East Cornwall. And I think in a lot of ways meets that aesthetic very well. But I think also one of the things I would like to say as the town first selectman is appreciating the essential nature of this business. And if I have 5 minutes, I won't use it all up telling stories, but I would like to tell a story to illustrate my point of how important this type of business is, because in 1989, July evening, when the tornado blew through town, I was a young member of the fire department, and it was our job to search and rescue for people whose houses were covered with trees. And the only sound we heard as we made our way from tree to tree up through the cathedral pines, which had blown down, was Denny Frost, Josh's predecessor, in his equipment, making his way up Valley Road to open up the roads. Nobody told him to do it, but he had the equipment to do it. And the town needs this business, needs this type of equipment, especially as the weather becomes less and less predictable and more severe. And if you saw the driveways that Josh opens up in his business, this is a vital public health and safety issue, keeping this town open and running in times of extreme weather. And I think that's very important. It's not on his application because he and Kay are modest people. But I think as a town leader, this type of business is very important to have in town, because when we have weather emergencies, we are on our own for a very often too long period of time, and having somebody with the skills and the equipment to open up the infrastructure and allow us to provide emergency services, of which he's also a member, so he knows how to drive diesel trucks to a fire or whatever. I think this application fits the neighborhood and provides an essential town's service that we cannot rely on people that are not in town to provide these services when things get really bad as far as weather. So anyway, thank you for applying, Josh, and it'd be nice to have Frost Excavation back in town.
Thank you,
Thank
Gordon.
you, Gordon. Any other comments? I see John Laporta has his hand up.
Yes, so I am John Laporta. I'm also a business owner in town, a masonry contractor. And I would like to say that I work almost on a daily basis with Josh and have for many years. That's actually not an exaggeration. And I find it interesting with Bruce, with your questions that were quite thorough, that it's interesting that Josh is the person who's hired to actually work with the issues that you brought up. So when you're talking about drainage, when you're talking about water flow, you're talking about hardscape gravel, that's exactly the business that he's in. And it's the experience that I have had over many years working with Josh, that he does that, and he does it very well. And he's very thorough and conscientious about it. Especially, for example, the question about the diesel engines and idling. I also have diesel trucks, and Josh diplomatically reminds me to turn them off when they're not necessarily needed, for example. So just in support of Josh in his business, I've also provided a brief written narrative in that support, and I echo what Gordon has said as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I am searching for hands. Keith Bodwell, you would have to shout, but you're allowed to do so. Rocco Bato has put up his hand.
Yeah,
Just-
Rocco Bato here, voicing my support for Josh Tyson and Catherine Hosterman's application for a major home-based business at their residence. Frost Excavating has been serving the town and local community for many years now, really decades, in fact.
Right.
It fits well within the scale of other home businesses that are currently operating in town. And as Gordon mentioned, it really does provide a vitally needed service to homeowners and people in the surrounding communities. In conclusion, I believe that Frost Excavating is really an exemplary example of a home-based business that should be permitted and encouraged in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocco. Another chance, folks. I see, is that a thumbs up, Richard, or a hand up? It's a thumb up. Okay.
Recording, yes.
I don't see any other hands. Am I missing anybody? John Barry.
I'm all for it. People talk about wanting to hire local, and that's the thing to do, but without people like Josh, we wouldn't be able to do it. So, thumbs up.
Thank you, John. That was delightfully brief. I see Mary. You'll have to give your last name, please, Mary.
Yes, hi, I'm Mary Zimini and I'm Josh's neighbor, and I'm pleased with Josh and Kate and their lovely family. They make awesome neighbors, and we've always had a great relationship. The one thing I do as a neighbor and as a having that drainage that goes under the road and into the field. I came in late, I'll acknowledge that. So I didn't catch the very beginning, but we want to just make sure that things like maybe salt for the winter plowing business that Josh does, or any sort of stockpiling of materials that he might need for his business that needs to be at the ready. If that drainage situation is going to be accounted for, or if perhaps we're going to store any salt or any kind of thing that could affect the soil quality of the field across the way.
Thank you for your question. Josh did address some of that, but because you're a concerned neighbor, I'm going to ask him to please answer your concern.
Mary, I don't know if you came in and heard this portion of it. I don't anticipate any on-site fuel storage other than a few small containers of fuel that we would need. It's actually far less expensive to go to the gas station and buy fuel there than it is to buy it in bulk, surprisingly so. I don't keep any supplies of fertilizer or anything on hand typically, unless we have a job that calls for it, in which case we would purchase it and use it fairly quickly. Regarding road salt and sand, I do need to mix a very small amount of salt into sand to prevent it from freezing. Something on the order of, we'll call it 2%, in a big dump truck load of sand, we would put 400 or 500 pounds of salt into that. But that would be stored in a shed under cover so that it stays dry. It doesn't get rained or snowed on, and that really prevents leaching, because the salt stays in the sand rather than being washed out by rainfall. Regarding storage of salt, I go back and forth. Sometimes I buy it palletized and it's in bags. Sometimes I buy it in bulk and store it in large plastic trash cans or something. But in either case, it is stored under cover and sealed so that it stays dry and doesn't get washed away. I mean, within the shop there would be sort of an assortment of spray lubricants and containers of oil and that type of thing. But that's it's all fairly small quantities. A lot of my service work is done outside, oil changes and that sort of thing. I usually bring to the local garage. Big truck servicing goes to JW Equipment in Goshen typically, and I just bring a truck in there for a few days and they work on it. I get back a serviced vehicle. So regarding that, I don't know. Like I said, I don't keep large quantities of any sort of chemicals or contaminants around. It's really just kind of an as needed basis.
All right, thank you, Josh.
You're welcome. Please ask any questions you have. I want to be transparent about this.
Absolutely. I trust you 100%, Josh.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, I am once again looking for hands up. Going back and forth between two screens. I'm not seeing any.
I believe Bruce has his hand up.
Oh, okay then. Bruce, go right ahead.
Sorry to get back on this, Josh, but one of the questions I wanted to ask you are putting in concrete floors in these buildings?
In the workshop, well, the heated building will have a concrete floor. In all likelihood, the shed will just be gravel. I don't know. I hadn't really planned on pouring a concrete floor in there. But
So if you're storing salt in there and sand, that might be something you might consider in order to be able to keep that from leaching down into a gravel area.
I would agree with that. That's at least the section that does, one section that does have the salt and sand in it. And I would be, willing to do that.
Cool.
It's not an issue.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, I am looking one last time, hoping that if I miss anybody, you will give a shout. In about another 30 seconds, I'm going to close the public comment section. Okay. I guess I'm closing the public comment section now. And
are you asking for a motion to close?
yes, I'm getting there. I'm reading your script, so don't worry, I won't miss it.
I move that we close the public comment section.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, raise their hands, except Keith, who has to say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
Will, where are you, Will? Okay. So that's unanimous. Public comment is closed. Now I'm looking for a motion to either close the hearing or continue the hearing.
Talking about
Can we just get everybody that's not a commission member to mute again?
to do stuff for Christmas.
Yeah. There is someone on N's iPad who needs to mute herself. And Bobby Tyson, if you could figure out how to mute yourself, that would be helpful too. Thank you.
I can try and mute them if I can find them.
Well, they've already complied, so it's fine. Thank you. All right.
And I make a motion that we end the public meeting.
Public hearing.
That we close the public hearing. Is there a second? That was a second from Keith Bodwell. All in favor, raise your hands. Keith and Whip. Okay, that passed unanimously. The public hearing is now closed. And we are now going to move on to our regular zoning meeting. Our first item is to approve the minutes from September 14th. I was not here, so I can't make any comment. I have read them. Are there any corrections?
Are we voting on the application for Josh's application, or
Well, that's
we
going
closed it here?
That's under pending applications.
That's under
Sorry,
pending application. No, I don't blame you.
I'm jumping ahead.
I move to accept the minutes as distributed.
Second.
Is that James Laporta?
Yep.
All in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. We have no new applications. We do have pending applications, and that would be special permit 253 for a major home business, Mr. Joshua Tyson. I am just going to open the discussion to the members of the commission. If you have any concerns or comments you wish to make, please do so now. James, I'm just going to go right ahead and ask you how you feel about the application. Are you ready to take a vote?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Josh, for I know this was a little more extended because of a glitch that we had previously, but I am prepared to vote on the application. Personally, I feel that Josh addressed all the concerns that were brought up, as well as it was a thorough application showing how he complied with our regulation. I would suggest that we do have a discussion whether we're going to require any of the slight modifications that we discussed, namely if there is going to be salt or sand, if we would require some type either concrete or some containing a barrier so that can't leach into the soil. I think that would be part of maybe a stipulation that we would have. Just something those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Phil, any?
No, I thought the application was, well written out. It was nice and easy to follow along with all the different, locations of all the regulations. I know it was hard work and it took a while to get done. Yeah, I feel prepared to vote.
Steve Sicardi, any comments?
No, nothing. I'm prepared to vote. I feel Josh had put together a solid application, met all our criteria, and what he's already proposed to us. So I'm ready to vote.
And Keith Bodwell, have you?
No, I think it was a thorough application. I'm prepared to vote on it.
Okay, Bruce, you will be having an opportunity to vote as the seated alternate. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I thought the application was really not only thorough, but really thought out clearly. And I believe Josh has a very clear understanding of what we were trying to do when we created this this new regulation. So I think that was great. I agree with James. I think salt does need to be contained, especially with the neighbors concerned about the water leaching over there. And I'd also like to see some kind of a retention pond, Josh, that can hold those heavy rainfalls that we have before it goes out. That'll help some of the debris and anything that's going to be a problem with the field next door kind of filter out before it gets there.
James?
I just have a concern, Bruce, if we're talking about water stuff. I'm not sure if this commission, because we're not the Inland Wetlands Commission, can we discuss things of that nature and have enforcement of that direction? I don't know if Karen, if you have an opinion on that.
I think what we're talking about is really a little bit out of the jurisdiction of the Inland Wetlands Commission, because there's no regulated activity. It's not regulated within, next to in soils or whatever. It would be much more of a design change to under erosion and sedimentation control and site management. You would not have to go to wetlands, because otherwise anything that's going down the side of the road would be considered. What you're trying to kind of implying is that anything that's going down the side of the road is regulated by wetlands, and that's really not the case.
Yeah, it's not a wetland issue.
Okay, thanks.
Fair enough, but I don't know if we should be imposing a sediment pond or requiring that. I think that's beyond. Josh has already sort of met all of our criteria that we have set forth, and I think the way Josh prepared the application he's met all the rules. We can make up more rules, but I don't think that's right.
Yeah, I will counsel the commissioners that our job is to determine whether Josh Tyson has met all of the aspects of 8.16, our home business regulation. And I don't recall that we had anything about such matters in that regulation.
Well, Anna, we discussed the possibility of chemicals and other things leaching onto other people's
Yes, we
property.
did.
And I know that the neighbor was a little concerned about it. I think this is
Right.
a very minor adjustment, especially for Josh.
The
Josh, you
sediment
might want to
pond is,
comment
I
on
guess,
that,
what I was pointing out.
that could,
Yeah, I don't-
avoid that and address their concern.
My sense is that the commissioners have no problem with requiring cement containment of salt and oil, but have some problem with the idea of adding an additional requirement in the form of the sedimentation pond. Am I correct, gentlemen and ladies?
Yes.
I think that's beyond, I think that's beyond what is needed for this situation.
Christine, do you have any comments about that as a designer builder?
Unmuting myself. Christine Gray here. I think given the slope of the land and the road, I do think maybe a rain garden would help, but they're very particular plants. It's a specific setup that requires a lot more maintenance than it sounds like. I'm not sure that, Bruce would actually know better than I, but I don't know if that's the solution in this case. I think Josh is very good at understanding drainage, as that's his job. And I think he would simply do well to be careful that he grades properly around the new work.
I'm also going to ask Will, since you haven't had a chance to say anything. Will, do you have any comments about this?
Sure. Yeah, I think that Josh came with a very thorough application and is willing to address some of those concerns. And I'm sure he's going to make best efforts to mitigate any drainage of oils or other salt materials. So I feel comfortable with it.
I'm going to ask for a motion then. Do I need to word it for you?
I move
James?
that we accept application
Ooh,
SP 253, special permit for a major home business with, as proposed, with the addition of adding containment if necessary for salt storage or some barrier to mitigate any salt leaching into the ground as part of that special permit application.
And also, the basis for the motion to approve would be that all of the requirements of the zoning regulations pertaining to site plan in Article 8.1 through 8.8, pertaining to home businesses in Article 8.16, and pertaining to special permit applications in Article 6.1 through 6.6 have all been met. Put the words in your mouth, right?
Thanks, Hannah.
Mhm.
I'll
Do we
second that motion.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to ask all in favor to raise their hands or say aye.
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The vote was unanimous. The application is approved. Thank you very much, Josh Tyson, for your patience with the planning and zoning process difficulties that we've had and your willingness to work very hard as our first case study for the new home business regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me see, where are we at?
Staff
We're now
reports.
down to staff reports. Karen?
I'm going to just let you continue on. I will, my staff report, I would just remind you of is that I hope to see some of you at the Fifth Thursday meeting tomorrow night, because some of the issues that you raised about rain gardens and retention and understanding the impact of pollutants and whatever, and will be addressed. And I think that this application in many ways addressed that is appropriate. And I'm so glad that this was a stellar application that came to the commission. Very well prepared application. Thank you. It makes my job easier when these good jobs are done by applications. Thank you, Josh.
Next item is correspondence and communications. There were 3 communications that were all shared with the commissioners and are listed on the agenda. We are now ready to move on to a workshop meeting. Our land use consultant, Janelle Mullen, was unable to be here with us this evening, so we will not proceed with any review of the zoning regulations. I have one item that I would like to address. That item has to do with the fact that the Northwest Hills COG is undergoing some staffing changes. They have elected to use their 7-day opt-out option on our contract with them for the land use consultant services. The first selectman and myself and the zoning enforcement officer have spoken with Janelle. She is available to continue the contract in a new format as a private consultant. The contract would have the same length, the same price points, the same tasks as the old contract. The only difference would be, instead of making out a check to the Northwest Hills COG, they would now be made out to her LLC. I've been asked to ask the commissioners if they will endorse this change in the format of the contract. I would welcome a motion to do so.
I move that we accept the contract or endorse accepting the contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
James, is there any discussion? Then I'll move the question. All in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Thank you, Keith. So that was a unanimous decision, and we're very grateful to both the COG for allowing Janelle to work part-time on her own time as a private consultant. I want to mention that several towns have already snapped her up, and we were lucky to squeeze in under the line and be able to retain her excellent services. The next meeting on October 12th, during our workshop, we're going to start by setting some long and short-term goals. The task list that I've already sent around to the commission members will be made part of the record for the next meeting, and we'll have that discussion then. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just quick question before we do.
Sure.
I know we still have to address, Karen brought up last time, the planning and zoning application needed revision. Are we going to discuss that next time at the next workshop meeting, or?
Yeah.
We could discuss it then. I actually have a, let's back off for a minute and discuss it now so we can put it away, because we have a lot of things to discuss and it's still pretty early. My personal feeling about the application formats, they were all previously designed by Karen and written by Karen. I would like her to proceed with redoing them and then let us review them. If that is acceptable to Karen, I don't think we need a subcommittee or any of the rest of us to work on something that we know nothing about. She works with these applications every day. Is that acceptable to you, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, is that acceptable to the commissioners?
Certainly.
Sounds
Good
good.
with me.
And Karen, if you need help, I volunteer my services, even if it's just typing or formatting.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that.
That's excellent. Yeah, Christine is dynamo format.
I'm not.
Yeah. So, and we will then review them to help ensure that they're thorough and that they reflect the new regulations and whatever else. The other question that we will need to deal with, but not this evening, at next month's meeting, are various opt-outs. But we will discuss those at our next workshop meeting. I hope we'll have an otherwise light meeting and can really focus on these important topics.
Our next meeting is the 12th, right?
I will look at my count. Yes, that is correct.
I expect that I will not be able to make it. I'm flying home that day from vacation.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. That
Letting
means
me
one
know.
of the alternates will be seated in your place.
Yep.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hey, aye.
Thank you. Wasn't that a nice, short, effective meeting? What I like to see.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Ann.
you to the
Good night,
public
everybody.
for your
all.
attendance. We appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night.
All set, Richard?
I'm all set. I just waiting for it to end and I'll
Okay. All right, I'll end it.
get it up on the website in a couple minutes.